Now, EU nations are ready to negotiate with the US. Let's hear from the European Commission President.
We stand ready to negotiate with the United States. Indeed, we have offered 0 for 0 tariffs for industrial goods, as we have successfully done with many other trading partners, because Europe is always ready for a good deal, so we keep it on the table. But we are also prepared to respond through countermeasures and defend our interests.
It's interesting. They have offered 0 for 0 tariffs for industrial goods. Is that going to be enough for Donald Trump, or is that too narrow?
It feels like it's a start, and it happened awfully quickly. I think Madam Ursula over there, talks about it as though, this is something we do all the time. It's no big deal. She didn't do it last week or last month or last year when she could have.
Absolutely.
Look, it's a start. I think what Trump is after is twofold. One is reciprocity. So the 0 for 0 is one shape that could take. The other is actually trade balance, where the number of things that are present in the market here that come from Europe is somewhat reciprocal in terms of the trade that we do there. So he talks about how US streets are flooded with European and Japanese cars. The reverse is not true, for instance. So that will take longer, where the tariffs even the playing field enough that step 2 is that hopefully the Europeans are actually importing more American goods, which helps go towards reindustrializing America, which is ultimately his goal.
Now, a massive win for the Trump administration in the Supreme Court, lifting a lower court order that blocked the deportation of Venezuelan gangbangers, amongst others. Kosha, it was a 5-4 decision. Amy Coney Barrett, who Donald Trump appointed in his first term, sided with the 3 leftists in the court. Tell me about this victory, what it means for the deportation plan, and the commentary around Coney Barrett. A lot of people are saying she's Donald Trump's biggest mistake.
A lot of people from the Trump base are not happy with her for this decision and other decision. Her and Chief Justice John Roberts, can't rely on them as always being conservative. But notwithstanding that, this is a win, 5-4 for Trump. This is that case 3 Saturdays ago when Justice Boasberg, the federal DC District Court judge, said and ordered the planes that were mid-flight outside of U.S. airspace on their way to taking those to El Salvador, taking those gang members out, have to be turned around and brought back. They defied it. This has been running its way up the court. Trump team asked for an emergency hearing with the SCOTUS, and they said that he does have, as commander-in-chief, jurisdiction in invoking that act and saying and declaring who is a predatory invasion or incursions or not at war with Venezuela. That's where people were arguing. But it is an invasion as defined by him, and he has full jurisdiction to do that, not this judge from D.C. They did say that there's some due process rights that should be or could be allowed to these folks, but it would have to be in the venue where they were held, which would be Texas and not D.C. So it's definitely a slap back on Judge Boasberg. And it is a win for Trump because they're going to be able to continue declaring these most criminal, violent gang members and the like, and getting them out of the country quickly.
And the venue is particularly important. Very big difference between DC and Texas there. And this development in the Supreme Court comes as more than 100 illegal immigrants were nabbed as part of a 5-day mass deportation operation in New York. Now, what's interesting about this, Kosha, among those detained were 3 convicted killers. The New York Post reports the group of murderers includes a 49-year-old from Trinidad and Tobago, a 32-year-old from El Salvador, and a 70-year-old from the Dominican Republic. When Trump talks about criminals, hardened criminals being amongst these illegal immigrants, this is what he's talking about, because the border was so completely compromised that you literally had killers crossing over and living freely in the community.
And those horrible cases that will live on in infamy, like Laken Riley and others who were killed by people exactly like this and this profile. This is the thing, right? So there's the legal thing with the SCOTUS ruling and the minutia of which jurisdiction and what the Article 2 powers are versus Article 3. That's all important, but the everyday person isn't in the weeds following that. The everyday person does understand criminals with tattoos all the way up to their faces coming in, these young, able-bodied men who have no business being here, were openly welcomed in and then committing crimes. So that politically, it really is a win-win for Trump. No matter what he does, he wins. The people are behind him, and the Democrats are really in a box, I think, politically, when they keep defending people like this.
If the Democrats were smart, they would just ignore this issue. They would just try not to bring any publicity to it and let him do what he wants to do in this arena, because as you said, anytime there's any sort of media attention, there's any courtroom challenges, it's good for Trump. This is a policy that he wins on with the majority every single time.